Henderson and tackled him to the ground. Everybody was amazed, especially Richard, as he helped Carly to her feet. Christy, being a bodybuilder herself, was beating the life out of Henderson, and her moves were so quick that he couldn't fight back. Christy knocked him to the ground, but he got back up. Before Henderson could attack Christy, she raised her arms and fired icicles at Henderson, pinning him to the ground. None of the icicles impaled him, though, and when he looked up, he stared at Christy in genuine surprise as she blew on her hands. "How's that for a feminine slut, you rotten vermin?" she said icily. "You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us." "What a woman," said Richard under his breath, awestruck. Fuming, Henderson broke free from the ice and lunged at Christy, tackling her to the ground. They rolled around on the ground, wrestling for a few seconds before Henderson pushed Christy away, inappropriately touching her chest in the process, being the chauvinistic pig he was. Christy tumbled to the ground while Henderson just stood there, laughing sadistically. "Christy!" shrieked Richard. Furious that Henderson inappropriately manhandled his girlfriend, Richard roared with rage, then lunged at Henderson and started punching him, using his super speed and vibrating powers. Of course, Henderson definitely couldn't fight Richard like this. The entire team, even Eddie, Peter, and Clara, cheered Richard on. "Come on, you great big pussy," Richard taunted. "Show me what you got." Henderson tried to punch Richard, but Richard ducked. Henderson bared his teeth angrily at Richard, who then raised his fist and punched the general so hard that he went flying about 100 feet, screaming as he did so. He landed on the ground hard. The team cheered as Richard pumped his skinny arms in the air in victory. All of a sudden, Henderson, now looking even more dirty and disabled, completely lost it. His eyes looked ready to bulge out of their sockets, making him look even more demented than ever. "That's it! You're going down, pencil neck!" Henderson screamed. He charged at Richard, who was helping Christy to her feet. But when Richard saw Henderson coming, he shoved Christy out of the way to take the hit. "Look out!" Grabbing his gun, Henderson struck Richard in the face with it, giving him a black eye and a huge bruise over his right eyebrow. Richard cried out in pain and fell to the ground. Why Henderson didn't just shoot him was because he was so demented that he wasn't thinking clearly. All he cared about now was causing the Mighty Nine as much pain as possible. "Richie!" Frank cried, running towards him. Frank opened his eyes, which widened in horror as he saw Henderson raise his gun, ready to strike again, until Frank intervened. Frank's face was livid with rage as he wrestled with Henderson, each not letting go of the gun. Seeing an opportunity, Frank, without taking his eyes off the general, kicked him in the balls, causing him to let go of the gun and clutch his groin. Frank then threw the gun aside, jumped onto Henderson, and started punching him repeatedly in the face. Henderson eventually managed to kick Frank off of him and, using this distraction, grabbed the gun again before Frank was back on his feet. While this was going on, Pedro and Reginald were whispering something to Gary and Joey, who nodded in agreement. Seeing Henderson distracted, the four of them made their move. Once more, Frank and Henderson were wrestling with the gun in their hands. Unknown to Henderson, Gary and Joey were holding a stretched-out Pedro behind Henderson. Reginald was waiting for the signal. "Now, Frankie!" Using all his strength, Frank raised his right leg, quickly placed it on Henderson's chest, and shoved him to the ground. Henderson staggered backwards, and as he dropped the gun, he tripped over Pedro, while Reginald picked up the gun and tossed it to Frank. "Freeze!" Henderson tried to get up, but Frank pointed the gun directly at his head. "I said freeze!" Again, Henderson tried to move, but Frank struck him over the head with the end of the gun. Frank was shaking, but fuming. "If you dare come any closer, I'm gonna blow your fucking brains out!" Henderson laughed, but Frank clicked the gun and aimed it directly at the general's head. Finally realizing Frank was being serious, Henderson laid his head down on the ground and put his hands up into feet. He looked ready to pass out from the desert heat. Just then, Sergeants Parker and Thompson, having regained consciousness, were coming towards the scene. Frank immediately pointed the gun at them. "Don't come any closer! Stay where you are!" Parker and Thompson didn't even bother to argue. They stopped on either side of the general and started trying to revive him. Breathing heavily, Frank threw the gun aside and walked over to where James was lying down. The entire team was speechless as they looked at Frank in awe. "Frankie," James said weakly, but Frank put a hand on his mouth. "Hang in there, buddy. Help is on the way." "Help is already here," said Joey, pointing. The others looked up, and sure enough, there was an ambulance, several police cars and machine tanks, as well as Sergeant Hicks' motorcycle and the mayor's car. Sergeant Hicks and Mayor Goodman were the first to reach the team, both looking overjoyed and relieved to see them. "Mayor Goodman?" Richard asked in confusion. "Thank God you're all right," she said, hugging Richard. "I heard all about it in the latest newsreel, and Mayor Goodman filled me in on everything else," said Hicks. "Forgive me for putting you all through hell. Forgive me." "It's all right, Sergeant," said Frank. "I'm just happy to see you guys," said Gary. "Speaking of which," said Goodman, suddenly frowning, "I believe there's someone who owes you an apology. Someone who informed the Army in the first place. Isn't that right, Stanley?" She opened the passenger side door of her car, and out came Stanley the barman, who tripped as he came out. As he picked himself up, he found himself face to face with the Mighty Nine, except James, who was being lifted onto a stretcher, and the three kids. Every single one of them looked like they wanted to hurt Stanley. A lot. Okay, Stanley said nervously. I can explain." The others didn't buy it. "Get him!" screamed Richard. Shouting angry words and insults, the team clobbered Stanley to the ground, while he screamed like a little girl. While that was going on, Goodman, along with Hicks, went to check on James as he was loaded into the ambulance. "Hang in there, James," she said reassuringly. "We'll get you medical help very soon. And don't worry about General Henderson," added Hicks. "We'll explain everything." Meanwhile, the rest of the team had stopped beating up Stanley, now a bruised, bloody pulp, except for Richard, who was still punching him in the face. "Richie, enough," said Christie, pulling him off. "He's not worth it." Goodman came over to the cowering Stanley and picked him up, none too gently. "You'll be fine after getting a lot of rest at home, lucky for you," she said sternly. "If you want to keep your pathetic job as a bartender, I suggest you get back in my car and keep quiet." She shoved him inside her car and shut the door on his face, knocking him out. Meanwhile, Henderson had regained consciousness and was shocked by the display that was happening before him. "Sergeant Hicks, what the hell is going on here?" he fumed. "Don't you realize you're sympathizing with the enemy?" "General, these aren't monsters," said Hicks, gesturing to the team. 4 nights ago, Mayor Goodman asked detectives James Reitherman and Catherine Norbert to investigate the fallen meteor near Camp Pyramid Lake. They brought all their old camping friends together to help with the investigation, and when they approached the meteor, it exploded. Apparently, the meteor gave off some radioactive energy that gave them superpowers, and thus they ended up becoming a superhero team. They called themselves the Mighty Nine. Many of the soldiers murmured in amazement, but Henderson was in disbelief. "But what about him?" he cried, pointing to James. "That's Detective James Reitherman," replied Hicks. "The meteor granted him superpowers similar to the Hulk, apparently." Henderson, realizing his mistake, tried to feign happiness and relief as best as he could as he came over to James. "Detective Reitherman, what an honor to meet you in person." "You can cut the crap already, General," Eddie yelled in disgust. Everybody turned to the 3 kids. "Who are you kids, and what is your business here?" asked Hicks. "My name is Eddie McDowell, and this is Peter and Clara Burkhardt," Eddie gestured to Peter and Clara. "We witnessed the meteor explosion. We followed James Reitherman back to his house. We were campers at Pyramid Lake 5 years ago, and we've been helping him create a superpower antidote before he transformed. We also are the kids who snuck into Area 86 and freed the Mighty Nine," added Clara, "but we only did it so they could save James from destroying Reno in a rampage." "And when we were in Area 86, said Peter, Eddie found something suspicious in General Henderson's office. "Show him, Eddie." Eddie reached into his pocket and pulled out the general's plan, which he stole right from under their noses, and handed it to Hicks, who read it with Sergeants Parker and Thompson looking on. When they had finished reading, they all looked at Henderson, shocked and outraged. "General Henderson," Hicks cried, "how could you? You knew about this the whole time?" Parker yelled. "And you ordered us to shoot them down anyway?" Thompson thundered. Henderson said nothing, but sweat started coming down his forehead. The mighty nine looked on in complete and utter shock, even James from the ambulance. Not to mention your secret planning of turning the whole state and then the entire nation into a military dictatorship, Hicks added. All the soldiers gasped and turned angrily towards Henderson, who realized he was finished. Without a word, he made a run for it, but Parker and Thompson, who were outraged by Henderson's treachery, tripped him. As Henderson tried to get back up, he found himself face to face with Police Detective Beth McGoldrick, head of the Reno Police Department, and James and Carly Superior, holding a pair of handcuffs in her hands. Eldred Henderson, said McGoldrick sternly, you are under arrest for attempted murder of 9 adults and 3 minors. He also killed 2 of his own men with a machete, yelled a random soldier. Several other soldiers shouted in agreement. McGoldrick was outraged. That does it, she said, cuffing Henderson. I'll see to it you're put away for the rest of your life. Richard started laughing. Eldred? Your name is Eldred? Hearing this, several others joined in, including half the army and the rest of the team. Henderson was fuming as he was escorted away. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up! The laughter died away immediately, and everybody stared at Henderson as he was being shoved into a police car. I'm not finished with you, James Reitherman. I'm not finished with any of you. I'll destroy you all! They slammed the door and Henderson's face got squashed against the window. Take him away, said an officer. As McGoldrick drove away with Henderson, all the soldiers cheered at his defeat. Parker and Thompson in particular looked very pleased with themselves. I just remembered, Clara said. Mayor Goodman, we need to get back to James and Carly's house. Eddie, Peter, grab the bottles of seltzer. It's just what we need to complete the antidote. The antidote? Goodman asked in confusion. We'll explain on the way, said Peter hastily, but right now we need you to drive us back to Reno immediately. Of course, said Goodman. I'm sorry I bit you, said Eddie to Thompson. Are you all right? I am, said Thompson, looking at his arm. No hard feelings. And can you ever forgive us for chasing you kids? Sure, said Eddie, shaking hands with him and Parker. Eddie, Goodman called. Time to go. Bring the seltzer. What about the team, Eddie asked. I'll take care of them, Eddie, said Hicks reassuringly. And to the army, he said, Men, let's move it. Get these superheroes to the hospital on the double. As the order was being carried out, Carly quickly checked on James before the ambulance doors were closed. Hang in there, Jimmy, she whispered. You're gonna be all right. Smiling feebly, James nodded at Carly and passed out. To be continued.